Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here for season 3 with Talking Books with Tanisha. Welcome back. We have a really great episode tonight where we have a chance to talk to a classroom teacher, a high school teacher, who's going to talk about the books that he uses in his classroom, how those books are identity affirming, and how they rub up against the books that are being banned right now in our country or at threat of being banned. I'm really excited to introduce Ben Folgers. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? How does this connect with books?
Yes. So I'm a 9th and 10th grade language arts teacher in Washington. I especially 9th grade is like a dear place to my heart because I just love like the transition from middle school to high school, no matter how messy it can be. So how this rubs up against what we've been talking about is I try to be very intentional around the books that I'm choosing to include in the classroom to teach my students, because I want them to see themselves reflected in the curriculum as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I love that. And I think one of the things I noticed when I came into your classroom the first time was like the stack of books on each section of your classroom, which made it super exciting for me because, I love books. So
yeah,
it was a really fun connector from the very beginning. This book that's behind me, I remember this book actually coming into our home. I mean, I already just read it the year before. You chose Pet as a book you want to discuss today. Let's talk about why. Tell me about Pet.
Oh, let's talk about that, please. Yes. So this is probably one of my favorite books that I've read in the past like decade. I specifically chose Pet because it talks about this futuristic utopian society called Lucille. And in that society, they have, through the work of activists, they have essentially like eliminated systems of oppression, right? So they've gotten rid of homelessness, the prison system. They've completely redone the justice system. And so I think I read this around the time of the George Floyd uprising. And so I felt like this was such a key text for me because it showed us what a future of our own society could look like. But even more than that, it features joy in this text a lot. So the main character, her name is Jam, excuse me, and she is a Black trans girl. And I think one of the reasons why this sticks out to me so much is because I think often when we are reading queer fiction or Black fiction, it tends to focus on the oppression that these characters are facing themselves, as opposed to the joy that they can also experience. And so this book is great in that it doesn't just focus on those systems, but rather like how is she, Jam, like navigating the questioning of her society. Yeah.
How did you find your students responded to this story?
I think they told me I taught it too slow, but
okay.
other than that, I think they liked it a lot. When I was first introducing this book, I felt like a little hesitation because I didn't know if there would be backlash from the community or parents or something because of this idea of like deconstructing society as we know it. But I didn't really get any of that pushback, and instead I saw some authentic inquiry from students into thinking about, so how do we see characters making sense of a world that when their world is in question? So the other big part of this book is that this like creature emerges from Jam's mother's painting and says, "I'm here to hunt a monster." And monsters in the system, the society, are all those systems of oppression, all those people. And so when Jam hears that, she's like, this is insane. Like monsters, there are no monsters in Lucille. You know? And so being raised in this society, she is now forced to question, well, what happens when our society is keeping secrets from us? So, which I felt is like kind of a huge connection to what we're seeing in our society today around banning books and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you're not afraid to touch those conversations and have youth be involved with that. And also I think, having an opportunity to see a trans Black character in a book and not have it always be necessarily a horrendous situation that's happening, is something that needs to be celebrated more often. And so just another way of creating a counter narrative and being able to talk about that story as well. Why is it important for you to think about identity affirming books, and why, like, what do you think right now in terms of like a person who's like putting these in the hands of students? Like, are you considering around this kind of banned book movement that's going around?
Oh yeah. So I think first and foremost, my hopes for my students is that they become lifelong readers, right? That they pick up a book, they find that book that they love, and then from now on, that's what they want to do with their life, right?
Yeah.
That's my goal. But do I often see that? No.
Yeah.
However, if I can get students to at least want to keep reading a book,
Yeah.
maybe it's the first one that they've read and they're like, wow, this isn't so bad. Like,
Yeah.
that's my joy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when we consider identity affirming books, students, depending on the student, especially if they're a person of color or they're queer, they haven't seen those things in the curriculum. And so if that's one thing that gets the student that's a little bit more likely to connect with the book, and want to read, and to say like, oh, there are people that look like me or that have my shared experiences, that I want to read that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, what would you recommend? Like, I know you have a lot of books that you keep in your classroom, probably in your own library as well. Like, what's something that you'd recommend to a reader right now?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many. I just, for YA fiction, I love YA fiction because I just think that they're so engaging, to me and to students. But I just finished one that's called Ace of Spades. I can't remember the author of it now, but
I'm
it's
reading
like
that right now.
You
Yeah.
are? Okay, good. It's like this cross between Gossip Girl and Get Out. I had my partner read it and she loved it. And so it was like, there's just like these twists and turns, and really I've been thinking about it to this day because I'm thinking, wow, our society is messed up. And so I can see the clear connections to it. And then another text that I actually read in class, but one that's standing up to me now, they had this as an option last year for book clubs, was In the Wild Light. And so this is taking place in like an Appalachian town, between these two characters whose parents have both touched addiction in some way. And so they get the opportunity to go to this boarding school, where there's that intersection of class within that system. And so I felt like that was another book that kids, especially like our white students who don't often feel like, when we talk about this idea of culture, they have a really hard time, like, well, I don't have a culture. I found a lot of those students connecting with this book in that way, because it had characters that are white but are, kind of touching these different aspects of our society that are affecting people as well. And I loved that book too. It made me cry quite a good deal. So
yeah. And what's the title one more time?
In the Wild Light.
In the Wild Light. Okay. Yeah. Are you reading anything currently you want to tell us about?
Oh, yes. What am I? Oh my gosh. I literally just finished. So what's the craze in book talk right now, or maybe it was last year, I don't know anymore, is Brandon Sanderson. And so I've been trying to read those really big, thick books. Like this is one of them, it's like 1,000+ pages. So I just read like a YA version of that because I felt like, this will probably be a little easier to get into. But I love science fiction and fantasy so much. So it was the Star Sight series, I think it's called, or the Skyward series, it's called.
Yeah. I feel like I actually could have lots more conversation with you right now, because I think that honestly, the threat of people taking the power out of the hands of both educators and youth around access to stories that show them who they are and reaffirm who they are is important for us to pay attention to. I think, there's kind of the misconception that, well, we're here, like, in Washington, like people aren't touching us, but people are also trying to threaten that here too. And so I applaud you for like putting these books into the hands of youth and being an advocate around identity. and letting students know that who they are is like perfect. Like you're really helping like create that affirmation space. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
I want to thank you for being my guest today. I really appreciated talking to you.
Anytime. I loved it.
Yeah. Everybody, I hope you also enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share with everyone. You want to hear what's happening in our high school classrooms, like listen to Ben Folgers, he'll tell you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And keep reading.